Hi, I want to talk a little bit about semantics. Okay. This what made me think of this again. I mean, it's constantly coming up, but I was watching N.D. Clark on anarchy, and then Cosmic Zen was answering on anarchy. And there's an issue here of people interpreting anarchy meaning total chaos or something like this, whereas Cosmic Zen has this more approach that we could have anarchy if people were ready for it. And I do believe in that kind of anarchy. It raises the question of what should anarchy mean for us. Well, one way out of the purpose of the semantics, getting it all organized, is so we can understand each other. So one easy way out of semantics is people can mean whatever they want. If the term objective means what I think it means, or what Wondrous thinks it means, just that there is an external world, fine, we can understand that the word objective might mean that. The word objective might mean whatever the blue puppy says, And that's fine. If it's just one person that thinks that's what objectivity means, I might even be able to, to forget that, except for when talking to them. If a lot of people think it, then maybe when we start a conversation, the semantics can go quickly, and I'll just ask, well, which definition do you mean? But and so that's the ultimate freedom in semantics, is that we can say, well, the word means different things. So we can talk about, we could just qualify those terms. And sometimes we just sort of abandon a particular term and have something that's very similar. For example, moral relativism has a history in philosophy. I think it uses relativism wrong, and so I'm not a moral relativist, but I do believe in a relativistic morality. So I call my morality a relativistic morality, and that distinguishes these two uses of the term relativism in morality. Okay. But that's not the whole story. Sometimes you do not want to give in and let people use this term, and there's a couple reasons. I mean, first, I'll start with the secondary reason. The secondary reason is because sometimes people are trying to rejuvenate and rehabilitate some concept that's failed, and they're trying to tweak it. And you can just see that concept can't be tweaked. The concept is broken. It's a bad design. You need to tear it all the way down and have a whole nother system in its place, and you might as well use a new term. And that goes to the primary reason. The primary reason that you don't want to give up and let somebody redefine a term like objective is, well, in the term government. It's framing. See, when I call something government, it invokes this idea of to govern, and that's a real concept. I'm not trying to get rid of the concept of to govern when I say we don't need government, that we should have an infrastructural state. I don't want to just give in and let people say, well, we mean this by government, because I believe there's confusion in that. And the confusion comes from the framing. To use a word where the root is govern brings in frames, these ideas. Okay, it brings in metaphors. It's like Lakoff has a term, a book titled "Don't Think of an Elephant," and the idea is, if you say "don't think of an elephant" to someone, they still think of an elephant. It brings in peanuts and circuses and India and whatever that person knows or thinks about elephants. It brings in all these symbols. To say govern brings in all these symbols about our history, basically our history as slaves. So I don't want to invoke that. And this can be really, really long run. I mean, an example of a term where this power is really obvious is to beg the question. I mean, to beg the question invokes frames that implies that should mean you're asking somebody for a question. But it doesn't mean that. It means circular reasoning. And it's always meant circular reasoning. Always. And yet over time, more and more people continue to use it as, no, what you've said brings to mind the following question. It begs the questions. The framing is going to win, because the framing is about how our brains actually work. So this is the struggle over semantics. In something like anarchy, do we want to mean anarchy as this kind of this pure idea of, well, maybe people aren't ready for anarchy, but it could still happen? Or do we want anarchy as like, we'll just take the rules away right now, and so anarchy means chaos? And I'm kind of on the fence with that one. I mean, I don't use the word anarchy a lot. I've been called an anarchist a lot, and the reason is because I am an anarchist. I define it technically as having to do with hierarchy. I don't believe humans should organize in hierarchy. I believe we should organize in distributed, non-centralized systems which are non-hierarchical. Okay, we should have distributed systems that are non-hierarchical. So I could argue for anarchy to mean that, and I do, in a sense that that is a definition of the word anarchy that I hold. On the other hand, it's somewhat rare that I run into anybody else that shares that definition. So should I ask you to remember it? I mean, you might want to wait and see how it all turns out. So these are the discussions about semantics. I mean, first it's to communicate, and then second, it is a struggle over the language and it has purpose because of the implications of framing, by which I mean framing as it's defined in cognitive science.